Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. As you can see by the title, this is a complete, thorough, in-depth update of all things my book that I'm writing. And if you've been around a while, you've known that I've been dilly-dallying around with this book for several years. It took me 2 years to actually finish writing, and then from basically that point to now, it's only been 6 months. Some of you know that I left Amazon last year, not by my own choice, but my contract wasn't renewed, and they said that they would have a job for me if I wanted to move to Detroit, which I did not want to do. So I ventured out to find something new, and I've had a series of jobs that were either only part-time or I didn't like, or were just working for my parents until then. But when I left Amazon, the one thing Nick and I talked about that I wanted to do was finish this book. My number one thing that I wanted to accomplish for what really ended up being the rest of the year was getting this book done and getting it in a position to try and get it published. Numero uno. And I am happy to say that despite the fact that I am once again not employed, I did finish the book and I am querying it right now. So let's go over everything. If you're very new, what is this book? This is a adult sports romance set in Houston, Texas. Basically, I'm a huge romance reader, and I love reading romance, but I just feel like the cookie cutter, get married, have babies, white picket fence kind of thing is overdone, especially when, like, to be happily ever after in the epilogue, the female main character gets pregnant, and as somebody who doesn't want kids, I kind of wanted to write a book where that doesn't happen. And so I can guarantee you, in every book I ever write, in any book I ever write, there will never be a pregnancy, ever. I'm not interested in it. I think if you want that, congratulations, there's 80 million other books out there for you. But mine will not be for you if you have to have a pregnancy in the epilogue for you to feel like the characters got a happily ever after. Basically, that is the point and the plot and the genre. This is like a strangers to lovers thing. They meet somewhere in Houston. Like I said, it took me 2 years to write it. I started in a Google Doc, and then the Google Doc quickly became unwieldy because it was so long. So I paid $60 and I bought Scrivener, which is basically a book writing software. It has a Microsoft Word style like text editor, but the way that it separates your pages and scenes is different. If you're interested, you could watch somebody else's YouTube video about that. I'm not going to go in depth to it, but after finishing writing the entire manuscript, actually I wrote half of it first, then I edited the first half because I felt like I was going in such a different direction. So that was like a half of an edit, and then I had 2 more self-edits after that. So this is the first self-edit. You can see I have, this one kind of got printed really big. I have 2 self-edits. You can see this one. They've got, they got like lots of red pen. I am a very traditionalist kind of person when it comes to that. I have an English degree. I do all my editing on physical paper with red pen. This is a continuation of that. Yeah, I just had a lot of red pen. This took a lot of time. I would like print it out at my parents' house because they run their own business, so they have like a really big printer. And then I would hole punch it and I would put it in this binder, which I also borrowed from my mom. So this was the second edit. You can see that it's kind of, oh, it's hanging on by a thread here. But yeah, this was the second edit. And basically the second edit is kind of boring because there's not as many sticky notes. There's not as much red pen. There's not as much crossing out entire sections and entire chapters that I ended up not liking. It basically came down to the fact that when there wasn't that much to edit in here, I knew the book was as done as it was gonna get without me having somebody else read it. Like, I was so in the weeds in this book at this point, having read it for like the 3rd time, and I wrote the whole thing myself, obviously, that I couldn't see the forest for the trees anymore. And I knew then that if I edited it again, it would just be me changing things and not necessarily improving things, which is basically what the internet says is your stopping point. When you're not improving anything anymore, because there's 80 million ways to write one sentence, and you can spend years and years and years and years rewriting the same sentence, and doing that for everything for a 300-page book will take you a very long time, but at some point you just have to cut it. So it was around Christmas when I cut it. In between all those edits, I did a storyboard which instead of holding up here, I will put video of over. Basically, the idea of this I got from watching a lot of background documentaries on The Office TV show, because they all do a lot of storyboarding, and I think this is traditionally more of like a TV writing thing, but I was having a hard time remembering like what chapter something happened. Like, what chapter does he find out about the fact that she's already divorced? What chapter do they do spicy things for the first time? Like, I was having such a hard time remembering and keeping track of those things for the continuity of the story that I was like, okay, I have to take some time and I have to get everything down as it happens. So what I did was yellow sticky note is the chapter, and then I color coded the sticky notes for each character's perspective to their character. So I think like pink is Audrey and green is Noah, and then I ran out of one color, so then I switched it, but basically they're color coded, and whatever happens in that chapter I wrote on a sticky note, and then I went through the whole book like that and I put them all on there, so that way when I was writing I could go back and be like, oh, okay, this already happened here or there, XYZ they both are aware of. So that was really helpful, but kind of time consuming, but to be honest, very helpful in the fact of like navigating the book as the author myself. It's much easier to look at that than it is to flip through, you know, 300 pages of a Google Doc or whatever. After the edits myself were done and the storyboard was done, and I felt like it was in a good enough kind of place, I started looking for beta readers, and obviously my mom, my husband, and my father-in-law were at the top of that list because they're my #1 supporters. But the thing is can you really, are they really gonna give it to you straight? You know what I mean? Like, or are they just gonna blow smoke up your ass all the time because they love you? So I knew that I needed some outside perspective, and obviously I'm part of Sid Bookworm's Patreon called The Greenhouse, which if you're new, that is who I'm talking about when I reference the worms. They call themselves the worms. And so I had been talking about writing the novel in there, and you know, everybody over the course was like, oh, I can't wait to read it, do you need somebody to read it? And so then I just messaged in the group and I was like, was anybody actually serious about reading this? Because if you were I could use the help now. So only, I think as of today, right now, 4 people, well, 3.5. My mom's finished it, Nick has finished it, Christy the worm has finished it, and then my father-in-law just started it. He's a very busy man, so. And he didn't get it till Christmas, so he got it a lot later than everybody else did. But I'm gonna read you. I asked Christy after she read it, I asked her to write me a review, like what she would post on like Goodreads, just so I could like have it, I guess. And she was the first person to finish it. She blew everybody else out of the water. She read it in like 2 or 3 days. And she said, I'll read you her review and I will put it up on the page so you can look at it too. I love a good sports romance, but when it comes to knowledge about sports, I am a hockey girl rather than a football girl. I was a little nervous about if I would still enjoy this book even with my very little knowledge of football, but I had nothing to worry about. Noah quickly stole my heart and made me a fan of football, at least while he's playing. I think the story had a good balance of football verbiage that you could understand without being too much that you couldn't follow it. I think that athletes are always assumed to be a certain type of macho man, and love that Noah was a gentle giant instead. Audrey was someone I could see parts of myself in. I was quickly on her side and rooting for her to stand up for herself and create the life she deserves and wants. I loved watching her grow throughout the book and learning more about herself. I also really enjoyed the side characters and felt like they added enjoyment to the book. The pacing was perfect for me, and I was thinking about it anytime I put it down, eager to be able to pick it back up and see what happened next. Overall, I had a great time and would recommend this to any sports romance lover. Ooh, my battery's dying, hold on. The fact that she was the very first person to read it, and then she just wrote me that like glowing review, just the part where she said she was thinking about it when she wasn't reading it, it's like probably the best compliment you could ever get for a book as a writer. And also that she found Audrey, my female main character, to be so relatable, which is what I was kind of going for when I made her an eldest millennial daughter. So at least if you don't relate to being divorced or, you know, trying to figure things out, I say later in life, but she's almost 30, and not wanting to have kids and not really fitting in that way and not being understood in that way. Hopefully at the very least, maybe you could understand the role that the eldest daughter plays in a family. And I think that is pretty prevalent of people who are like close to my age group. And so I'm happy that there was something there, I think, for everybody, and I hope that other people see that. And so the only other kind of beta reader I had is a woman who I found on a Facebook group for beta readers. It's just called like Free Beta Readers or something like that. And I joined it, and she volunteered, and she actually has finished a manuscript and has an agent. So she's much farther in the process, like more experienced than I am. And she's currently beta reading it at a much slower speed than everybody else, but at a much more detailed level. Like literally her comments are, she'll read like 4 pages and leave like 20 comments. And they're just so helpful and informative. And a lot of them are like grammar stuff that I wasn't confident enough that I knew or didn't know to like change. She was helping me fix. So I'm really grateful to her for that, because it's at a much higher level than any of my other friends or family was able to do, since they are not like people who are trying to get published. It's just they're kind of reading for like the love of it, where she is reading it with a more critical eye, which is obviously necessary. So I'm allowing her own pace, just because, I mean, this is free and unpaid, and I think she has kids and she's getting her own book, you know, done. So obviously, you know, I'll take her help and advice at whatever speed she's willing to give it. And she's probably like, I don't even know if she's 100 pages in at this point, but I'm, you know, as she goes, I go. She makes the updates, I make the changes, and we've just kind of been going like that, and it's been really nice. And the other thing she helped me with is she helped me write a query letter, which, if you're not familiar with a query letter or general publishing or how books get published or anything like that, I'll give you a little short rendition of it. So a query letter is basically your elevator pitch to an agent to have them sign you as a writer or an author, because the agent is the person who takes your book and shops it to publishers using their contacts. 80% of books that are published are books that had had agents to represent them. So this is really a key part, and it is where I am at now in the process. So I read a lot about query letters online. I wrote a draft of a query letter. I put it on our pub tips for critique. They helped me out a lot. I put it up a second time. They helped me out again. And then I had the thought, oh, this very helpful woman from Facebook has an agent, which means at some point she wrote a successful query letter. So let me message her and see if she's willing to take a look at my query letter. And she was, and so she did. So it has been reviewed probably 3 times. And I was like, okay, good enough, let's go. We gotta start getting it out at some point. We can't be sitting on this forever, because I've seen people in these other Facebook groups and stuff say that they're on like their 50th iteration of a query letter. Again, I go back to, at some point you're not improving anything, you're just changing stuff. And I didn't want to get hung, like, I think part of it too is like, it's so scary putting your book out there that it's very easy to procrastinate on doing it. It's very easy to be like, no, don't read it yet, it's not perfect. And it's very easy to be like, no, I'm not querying yet, the query letter's not done, it's not the very best it could be, like this and that and all the other things, even though I've had 3 or 4 people look at it and this is the 3rd draft or whatever. At some point you just have to cut it and go. And so obviously I've had a little pressure because I don't even have a job right now, so what else do I have to do except get things done and get it going? But I can see how other people would get stuck on something like that, because it's easier than moving forward and saying, okay, this is good enough, because as a writer, are you ever really good enough? So that's what I'm doing right now. I then quickly found in my querying that you don't have to have just a query letter and a couple chapters samples. You have to have a synopsis and a 1-line pitch. So a synopsis is more than just what's on the back of the book. It actually spoils the ending and covers the entire book. And it has to be between like 1 and 2 pages. So I wrote that. I had my internet friend from Facebook look at that for me and help me out with it. And then you also have to have a 1-sentence pitch, which is like, if you had 10 seconds in an elevator to pitch somebody your book, what would you say? And my mom actually helped me with this, because you probably know she runs her own business. And one time she did like a business thing at U of H, and they helped them put together a pitch. And so she kind of explained to me like the structure of that, and I fit my book kind of into that structure, and I came out with a, in my opinion, pretty good one. Maybe I'll put it up so you can read it. So yeah, so you have to have a query letter, a synopsis, a 1-sentence pitch, and then like within the query letter there are certain standards, like it should only be like 20 to 50% of the book like plot that's in that, and then you also have to have like who would this book be for and what other titles are comparable to it. So you have to go out and find comp titles basically, which was a task in and of itself. And then a lot of times it's either the first 3 chapters, the first 10 pages, the first 50 pages of your manuscript for them to read and like decide on. Very quickly I found that this is going to be A, very tedious, and B, very disorganized if I didn't figure something out. And I have seen people with some very detailed Excel spreadsheets. I personally am not an Excel guru. I would have to have Nick do like all of that for me. But there's this website, it's called Query Tracker, and for $25 a year, they will help you keep track of your queries. So basically what they do is they keep an internal catalog of every agent that, I don't know if it's because they want to be on there or they find them and put them on there, but they have all of these agents sorted by genre. So what you do is you go on there, you sort them by anybody who's accepting romance, because that's what mine is. So anybody who's accepting romance will show up, and then you just go through them and you look at each of them, and sometimes they want you to email them with your things. Sometimes they want you to apply through the Query Tracker website, which has its own form. And then the Query Tracker website, you can say, okay, I queried this agent on this day through email, and it will keep track of it for you. And so you would have a list of all of them, and they would have like a little check mark next to them that you queried somebody at that agency. And then they would have a little symbol for how you queried them, either an online form, an email, snail mail, which I haven't done any snail mail, or the Query Tracker form. So it's and when you get a rejection, it automatically updates it if it was like a query letter one. I don't think I've gotten an email one back yet. As of today, I've sent 78 query letters, and I've gotten like 7 or 8 standard automatic rejections. I'm not too worried about those because the people who are sending those rejections have only had the information for a week. So I don't really think that they were really ever interested in it. And I've been talking with Nick about like the whole process. It's very, very similar to job hunting, where you spend, 10 or 15 minutes per application, fill everything out for them, and then it's a numbers game is what it really comes down to. Maybe there's a couple who I, like my A-list, like MVP, who I would absolutely want to be with, like Emily Henry's agent, for example. But if that isn't a possibility, I will take literally anybody who takes me at this point. Literally, only one person has to say yes, and my dreams come true, basically, or closer to being true. So it's like being on the edge of your seat all the time, because yes, I've gotten 7 standard form quick rejections, but I also knew going into it that I'm shopping a book that is not the normal rom-com. It's not all of the other hockey romances you see that are so popular. I need an agent who is willing to take a chance on me. I need an agent who is looking to not capitalize on the book talk tropes or anything like that. Somebody who is truly looking for something that doesn't fall in line with everything else, and I know that that's going to take a special person. And as long as I put in the effort to find that person by not limiting myself to any agent to query, then hopefully that works out for me. But yeah, it's tough because it's like being on the edge of your seat all the time for probably 4 to 8 weeks is a lot of the time it takes for somebody to even get back to you and say, hey, can you send us some more of your manuscript? So either you're going to query them and they're going to send you a standard rejection, they're going to send you maybe a little personalized rejection, they're going to request a partial, which is some more of your manuscript, or they're going to request a full, which is they want the whole thing. And then you have to wait again for them to get back to you for the full or the partial on whether or not they want you. So this still, overall, I'm probably halfway through the entire book process between getting it written and getting it published. But the front half of writing a book took me 2 years, and the second half of editing and getting it ready to query has taken me 6 months, and I know that this is going to be a long path. So how do I plan to do all of these queries? The first place I started was Emily Henry's agent. I just Googled Emily Henry's agent, and her name came up, and I found her website and I read the instructions and I sent my query. I don't think I've gotten a rejection from her yet, so yeah. But I want to be Emily Henry when I grow up. We have very similar experiences. She was a technical writer before she got famous from her books, and obviously I was also a technical writer until like 2 weeks ago. So yeah, so I just have had like a similar life path of Emily Henry, and she writes rom-coms that kind of don't rock to like the regular, you know, book talk rom-com beat, and I'm hoping to follow in footsteps like her. So I started with Emily Henry's agent because why not shoot for the fucking stars? And then I went through Query Tracker and I did every American agent that I could. And then I am now in the process of doing every international agent, because they're obviously literary agents in the UK and Canada. And so I'm doing anybody who will take me on those. And then my plan for the next round of agents is to go through every book I've ever read on my Goodreads list and Google the author and see if I can find their agent, because while there are a lot of agents on Query Tracker, obviously there's no way for them to have every single one ever. So I'm gonna work on trying to find agents who are not listed on there by doing the legwork and the research myself, and that will hopefully collectively be about 150 agents. So I would have, and you know I only need one yes, so I need one out of 150. So what is the future of this book? So theoretically, hopefully, you know, Wildest Dreams, I get an agent, they shop it around. Okay, let's say top of the line, Wildest Dream come true. I get Emily Henry's agent or Tessa Bailey's agent, and they shop me around, and I am then published by Tessa Bailey's publisher, which I think is Bloomsbury, or Emily Henry's publisher. That is like top of the line, super crazy. Worst case scenario, and absolutely nobody is interested and nobody cares, and the book is just not good enough. I was originally going to just put that thing up on Kindle Unlimited, like pay to get somebody to line edit it to make sure there's not like any grammatical errors that people don't care to see in. And then I was going to do all of the legwork to get it popularized myself. But now there's a chance that TikTok is gonna be banned, and I'm not really sure where else I would market my book except for that. So I'm probably gonna wait and see what other people are gonna do. And then when I have been querying, I've been reading a lot of queries that say like, if you have previously published this book anywhere, don't bother to query me. So I don't know if that includes Kindle Unlimited as being published, since it's not traditional publishing, it's self-publishing. I don't know if that really counts or not, but now I'm hesitant to put it up there, because if it completely wipes the ability of it to ever be published traditionally by putting it up on Kindle Unlimited, I don't know if I want to do that, because I do eventually want to get it published. I know I wrote the book first, but there's a chance that this won't be my first published novel, because regardless of what happens, I do plan on continuing writing, and I'll talk about that in like just 1 second as like the closing of this video, which I'm sure is extremely long. But so I was just going to publish it on Kindle Unlimited, but I don't think I want to take away my chances of it ever being traditionally published should my book 2 or my book 3 get picked up to be traditionally published, and they say, oh, you planned on this being an interconnected standalone series and you already have another book, we'll just publish them out of order because I like this one the best, and then if it does good, we'll publish your original book 1 as book 2. And I don't want to take that off the table for it having been on Kindle Unlimited. So I know that Emily Henry kind of got her, you know, like YA books published first, and she had already written Beach Read, and she put it up on a shelf because she didn't think there was a place for it. And after publishing a couple young adult novels, they were like, do you have anything else? And she was like, well, I kind of have this book, which is an adult romance, and I just didn't think anybody was ready for it. And they were like, oh my God, Emily, this is amazing. And that like shot her through the roof, like put her on the New York Times bestseller. So right now I'm in between doing you know, what I think everybody does, which is just throw that shit up on Kindle Unlimited, and doing an Emily Henry where I hold on to it and I kind of keep it on a shelf and I move on to the next one and see if that can't make it anywhere. So that's kind of the plan for right now. Going forward, after, there's gonna be a period of time where the queries slow down and I'm just waiting for replies. And once I hit that, I will start writing book 2. Book 2 follows a side character and, well, 2 side characters, one who's a teammate of Noah, and then a college friend of his. It's a friends to lover romance with, I'm thinking, fake dating. I don't have everything ironed out, but that's the way I'm leaning towards. And so for Christmas, because I plan on writing another book, for Christmas I asked Nick for this. This is a Freewrite Traveler, so it is basically a smart typewriter. So it has nothing in it basically except the ability to write. It has no email, no social media. It has Wi-Fi and Bluetooth so that it sends your book to a cloud basically that it's stored on, and then this is what it looks like. Like I said, all you have is a screen for typing and a keyboard for writing, and the idea of this is continuous, uninterrupted, creative flow writing. And this is what I plan on writing book 2 on, and if I don't like it, then I don't know, but if I like it, then book 3, book 4, book 5, all plans I have for this series itself. And then of course in the very, very, very future, 4 more books from now, I have plans for a kind of sci-fi romance. And then my worm friend Nicole and I were talking about a dream she had last week, and she said she would be interested in co-writing a book based on that dream. So maybe there's a co-written book in my future as well as my own. So yeah, that is every single tiny imperceptible detail you need to know about my book, where the book is at, what's going on with the book. I took a long hiatus from YouTube, but now I'm back because right now I'm full-time authoring and full-time YouTubing. And I had said to my mom the other day at lunch, I was like, I feel bad because I didn't have time to put out a single job application today to a technical writer job, a career job. And she was like, yes, you did. You sent out query letters to agents, didn't you? I was like, yeah, I probably sent out 15 or 20 yesterday. She said, yeah, so you are putting out job applications. Right now you're looking for your job, and that job is trying to get this book published. And I was like, you know what, you're right. Thank you everybody for the support. Thank you for believing in me. And at the very least, if nothing comes of this book, I can say that I am one of the few people who finished a book in their lifetime, who wrote a whole book. My mom keeps telling me I'm an author. Like, she'll tell her friends that I'm an author, and then they'll come to me and they'll say, I heard you're an author. And I'll say, well, you know, I'm working on it. I mean, I finished a book, so technically, yeah, I am an author or a writer. But to me, that's not like the dream, is to just have it and like put it in the closet, and when I die, they take it back down and they're like, wow, I can't believe this never got published. Maybe we should try and get it published. And they publish it posthumously, and then I'm famous, but I'm dead. So I'm trying to do it now. And I turned 30 this year. I'm trying to do it all while I'm young and I have time and I can get it done and I can enjoy it. And part of me feels like these other jobs that I'm perfectly qualified for, but I didn't get because Nick and I are married and it's at his company, are saying no to me because something else is coming. Something bigger is coming down, and I am not technically a manifestation person, but I'm trying to manifest it to me. Bring it to me. I need it. So I really appreciate you sitting through this whole video watching, and I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you're having a great day, and I'll see you again in my next video. Bye.